Alexander Isak is finally a Liverpool player, the biggest move of the summer, and it is now going to shake up our FPL teams. So going into game week 4 in today's video, I'm going to discuss exactly whether we all should be buying Isak and what my transfer plans are going into this game week. So as always, if you look forward to the video, make sure to drop a like and of course hit the subscribe button if you want daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get to today's video. So first up, a quick recap on how game week 3 went, because for a lot of people, it was a roller coaster of a game week. It was a tough week to pick up points, to be honest with you, especially if you didn't hit your captaincy. Of course, let me know in the comment section how many points you scored. But for my team, it proved to be 57 points, which, to be honest with you, on reflection is actually an okay game week. It gave me a green arrow of about 1 million places to basically bang on 3 million in the world. Doesn't sound great, but I'm more than content with the rank right now. And I made 2 transfers. I sold Cole Palmer to Ismaila Sarr, which proved to be profitable, but I ended up doing Mark Gui to Chris Wood, which obviously didn't pay off. But for those that haven't heard the news, Mark Gui has now gone back to Chelsea. So if you're in a position right now where you have triple Chelsea and you also owned Mark Gui, you are now going to have to be forced to sell Mark Gui because you can't have 4 Chelsea players in your team. So just a bit of a reminder there that is going to cause some problems for some FPL managers in your teams. But in terms of the standouts, Sanchez with that controversial clean sheet, those late defensive contributions of Pedro Porro picking me up 4 points, which was really, really needed this game week. Ismaila Sarr with that goal for Crystal Palace and also top for expected goals this game week. Fantastic. Really glad that I own him ahead of game week 4. Bruno Fernandes with that 20-point captaincy total, that late penalty once again being much needed, and João Pedro proving to be an incredible pick as a forward value. I think right now he is one of those that if you don't own, you probably do need to try and find a way to get him into your team. The big disappointment, of course, is going to be the Dewsbury Hall, 12 points on the bench. I wasn't expecting him to play as a number 10 in this Everton team, because the last 2 game weeks have suggested he was much more of a number 8. But if we do continue to see him playing as a number 10, with Grealish off the left and Ndiaye off the right, then I think I've got myself an absolute steal at 5 million. And I'm actually quite glad to own him, even though he was on my bench for this game week. So 57 points all in. Yes, some disappointing players and ones that we need to touch on. In particular, the double Aston Villa attack, who are just looking completely lost for ideas after that Crystal Palace battering, it's worth noting. Let me know in the comment section how many points you scored. I'm happy with the week, but let's take a look at obviously the big move of Isak to Liverpool and my game week 4 transfer plans. So the biggest transfer saga of the summer has officially been concluded, as we've had the here we go from Fabrizio Romano of Alexander Isak to Liverpool as part of a £130 million transfer fee. And it looks like he's going to go out with medical tests today, and we're expecting him to probably be announced on this Monday, probably late on, because this is what Liverpool have been gearing towards. Of course, with the signing of Hugo Ekitike, we all thought that might be the end of the Isak situation, but everybody who knows football will know, if you're chasing Champions League, if you're chasing Premier League, if Ekitike got injured, they had no backup in that team. It was a headache for Liverpool, of course, but I think this is exactly what champions do in these situations. They get the best players and they get him in and they find solutions. And I think Arne Slot is going to do exactly that with Isak. When someone like him is on the market, it's too good to ignore. So they, of course, have got their main man. So the discussion now for us FPL managers is, do we actually bring him in for game week 4? Because we know this isn't a new player to the league and we know exactly what we are getting with Isak. This is almost guaranteed goals for Liverpool. I don't like to say that, but this guy's too good. And the creativity in this Liverpool team, he's going to get too many chances in this Liverpool team not to be a success. I feel that good about this move. So let's talk about this. Firstly, it's a record deal. If they're spending £130 million on a player, he is your number 1 forward. Anybody sat there right now trying to convince me in the comment section that Hugo Ekitike is going to be starting one game, Isak the next, Ekitike the next, it's not going to happen. They have spent this much money on a guy who is going to win them the league. Simple as that. Hugo Ekitike will probably take minutes off the bench from him, or in Champions League situations, I think Ekitike might also get some minutes, or he is competing now for Gakpo off the left. This man is their new number 9, and similar to that of Florian Wirtz. Even though Wirtz is having a trickier time right now, he's still going to start because he is their main man in terms of a transfer situation. And I think it is simple as that right now at Liverpool. So I think he's the number 1 guy. The problem with him right now, if you're looking to buy him, is the limited preseason. Of course, he's been training on his own, but he's had no matches, and everybody else is basically 3 games into this Premier League season. We all know the intensity of the Premier League. So I personally think Hugo Ekitike does start game week 4, not because he's the number 1 forward, but because he has actually got minutes under his belt. Of course, now Isak is going away with the international team with Sweden, so we're not actually going to see him play for Liverpool in terms of training ground stuff until basically a couple of days before game week 4. So Ekitike is actually up and running. I expect him to start. So from our perspective, I do think it's a risk buying Isak for game week 4, even though I understand the temptation to want to go there. When we take a look at the fixtures coming up, the problem is you're missing Burnley, but as I said, I just don't think Isak definitely starts that one. Then we got the Merseyside derby against Everton, which actually is going to be a tough game of what we've seen from Everton, in particular if Jared Branthwaite is back. Then Palace, possibly without Mark Guehi because he might be a Liverpool player. That could be an okay game. Chelsea away, then Man United, Brentford, Villa, and then Man City. So to be honest with you, I think in this situation right now of Isak, we can just sit tight with him, understand what happens in game week 4, then we got Champions League football coming about and reassess by game week 5. The thing about the 10.4 million price bracket, unless you own Erling Haaland and you can come down from it, everybody else has to upgrade their Ollie Watkins or their João Pedro or their Chris Wood to get him in. So it probably is going to require either significant money in the bank or a double transfer. For that reason, I think putting yourself in a position where you can buy Isak in game week 5 is more important than maybe making any other transfer in game week 4. And the big thing as well is, with Mo Salah looking pretty underwhelming in the last few weeks, yes, he got a late goal against Bournemouth, yes, he got a late assist, but at 10.4 million, are we just looking at a player who is actually just going to be £4 million cheaper and a better pick in this Liverpool team? And we've got to assess whether that is the case, because come game week 5, some managers might look at it and think, well, the way I'm going to afford Isak is actually taking the money out of Mo Salah and putting it into the forward line. So I just want to have a bit more information to see whether Isak is actually the Mo Salah replacement right now. So my conclusion is I wouldn't be buying him for game week 4. Unless we get a news that Arne Slot's coming out and saying he's ready, he's starting in game week 4, then that changes things. But I don't think that will happen. Get yourself into a position in game week 5 where you have a few transfers in the bank that will allow you to buy Alexander Isak if you deem him a fantasy pick. I personally think it's a bit of a weird one because Ekitike will get minutes off the bench at times, but we don't know if that's going to be for Gakpo or for Isak. For that reason, don't buy in game week 4, but have a plan for game week 5. Now, for my own personal team right now, we got some problems with midfield because Bruno Fernandes for me is a hold long term. I think Salah is still a hold for now, but it is getting tough. Dewsbury Hall, fine. Morgan Rogers is the problem. I can't believe I'm saying that because he has been my number 1 guy last season. But this season, Aston Villa as a team are just not working. And sometimes that is even bigger of an issue than that of a player problem, because when the team isn't functioning and when you have someone like Unai Emery who is being very vocal in his press conferences, he's clearly unhappy with the club and the transfer strategy and the money that they're investing. For me, that suggests that the team isn't clicking, the team will continue not to click, which means the ceiling for the likes of Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins is much, much lower. And that is the real problem I have right now with Aston Villa, and I do want to move away from them. So I need to look at what options are actually readily available, because at the price point of Morgan Rogers around 7 million, I've got some money in the bank, which allows me to get up to a Semenyo. But of course, in an ideal world, I probably would rather come down off a player and give myself some money in the bank to go elsewhere in future weeks. So the 3 players that I've isolated here is going to be King at Fulham. Of course, 4.5 million, looked fantastic once again against Chelsea. Jack Grealish, who was just finding a resurgence in confidence and form in Everton's team. And then, of course, Semenyo, who is just always lively, could have scored once again against Spurs. So different price points that enable me to do different things with my team. Now, firstly, in terms of the fixtures, this is based on fixture difficulty, and Bournemouth are top of the ticket here for the long-term perspective. Brighton, Newcastle at home, Leeds, Fulham, Palace, Forest. I would not look at any of those and say they are incredibly tough fixtures. Whereas when I look at Everton, Liverpool away is tricky, Man City away is tricky, but I would argue that they have the players to hurt Man City in transitions, similar to what Brighton have done. And then in terms of Fulham, The next two are fantastic at home. Then they get a bit more difficult: Villa away, Bournemouth away, Arsenal and Newcastle. So I do feel like Fulham are a bit more of a short-term buy. Bournemouth you can own for the long term, and Everton, I think you could definitely own, but you might need to find a way of maybe benching at times. But if you're paying 6.7 million for Grealish, you probably are starting each and every week. So a little bit of a roundup here. King started the last three. Unless Fulham buy in the transfer window, I do feel like King is going to be a starter, but he is going to be a 60-minute sub. That's my only downside regarding him. 0.26 expected goal involvement per 90, and to be honest with you, if that goal didn't get chalked off against Chelsea, it could have been so much better. He really did pass the eye test against Chelsea, and as I mentioned, great short-term fixtures. Grealish, four assists in the last two, definitely passed the eye test. He looks great. Everton are passing the eye test as well, in particular that game against Wolves. As I said, good fixtures. Even if you had to play him away against Liverpool, I don't hate it. The problem for my team is I own GW4 already. Do I want to double up on Everton attack? Not really. And then Semenyo, 0.65 expected goal involvement per 90. To be honest with you, I thought the header against Spurs was actually a bigger chance than what the data is suggesting. We know he's going to play every single minute, and as we said, great fixtures. The problem is, do I want to go up from Morgan Rogers' price point to an even more expensive player when I know I kind of want more money in the bank to maybe make an Isak transfer later down the line? So my conclusion is this: Rogers is frustrating as hell right now, and going up against Everton, I don't expect anything once again from Aston Villa. But the problem, I don't think Semenyo resolves my team structure. I don't want double Everton in Grealish. And I think King, while he is a little bit of an exciting option, I do think eventually this could be a problem in my team where it's going to mean I'm going to have a guy who could actually be a bench player, if anything. And then I have to ask myself the question, do I want that kind of player? So if I had to pick one right now, I actually am quite excited by Jack Grealish as a pick. So he would be my number one if I didn't own Dewsbury Hall. But for my team, I just can't get excited about any of them. So take a look at my Game Week 4 transfer plans and my current team. I've got 0.7 million in the bank and one free transfer available. And as we discussed, I think it is really important, if we can, to give ourselves flexibility in future game weeks for this whole Alexander Isak situation, because at 10.4 million, if he does become the guaranteed starter that I am kind of thinking he will be in this Liverpool team, then we got to find a route for him, because I think he is that important for our teams, and the structure of this is just going to have to change. So right now, Sanchez between the sticks away against Brentford, absolutely fine. I'm content with that. I think Brentford are slightly turning a corner, but I still think Chelsea are just a better team in general for that fixture. In terms of the back three, Anderson at home against Leeds, I'm fine with. That's kind of the reason why I had him in from the start, because I knew he would rotate quite well with the rest of my team. But the problem, double Spurs defence. Now, in game weeks 1 and 2, we were talking about how this is the new Arsenal team. Defensively, we were all joking, of course. Then we got brought down to earth against Bournemouth, because that was a poor performance from Spurs in general. Just had no creativity in that midfield and gave up a lot of chances to Bournemouth. Against a West Ham team now who have had their confidence given back to them a little bit with that performance against Nottingham Forest. So I don't look at that fixture now and think, oh yes, I want double Spurs defence. The problem is, do I think there are any defenders right now for game week 4 that are absolutely desperate for my team? Well, Palace at home against Sunderland is a great fixture, don't get me wrong, but we're now looking like Mark Guéhi is going to leave. Is that the straw that breaks the camel's back almost? They've lost Eze. Could Mark Guéhi be the real glue in that team that's going to disrupt them? Because they have been fantastic, Crystal Palace. With all the problems that they had with Eze's situation and Mark Guéhi, they still go out, put an incredible performance against Aston Villa. Maybe this is one of those teams that just continue to tick along, but I don't really want to be buying Palace defence, knowing that their best defender is possibly going to leave, even though I think Lacroix is incredible as an option. I really regret not owning him for defensive contributions and just general goal threat in the final third, obviously picking up an assist in that week. So defensively, even though I hate my double defence there, I can't really get to a Liverpool defender for their away game against Burnley, and I don't really like any of the teams. So I probably am going to play double Spurs and just hope they go back to a defensive solidity there. In terms of the midfield 5, now, firstly, I want to raise awareness here. I've put a yellow flag on Ismail Isak because he did go off for a slight hamstring concern. However, he did come out in the press conference afterwards and say that he feels like he'll be fine for the Sunderland game. And to be honest with you, I need him for this game because this is kind of the reason I brought him in. The goal against Aston Villa was just an added bonus. So really need him for that game. It looks like he'll be fine, but of course it is the international break now, so we've got to monitor these games that happen for the teams. Salah, I know people are concerned, but away against Burnley, he is going to be my captain. I'm not even hesitating about that. And Bruno Fernandes away against Man City, again, is it a cash cow in my team? 100%. Is there a midfielder right now that I feel desperate I need to sell him for? No, because I think I've got problems in Morgan Rogers. But as I said, with the situation right now, I don't think there are any midfielders that are putting their hands up for the game week 4 fixtures that I need to bring in. So I think Rogers is going to stick around, and so too Dewsbury Hall, and hopefully I can see him in that number 10 role once again. The big thing is the front two. I've currently got Chris Wood on the bench alongside Murillo. I just rate the Arsenal defence so highly. João Pedro, of course, is going to be starting away against Brentford. Delighted to have him in the team. The other one is going to be Ollie Watkins. Now, of course, I've spoken about it. I'm going to ignore Alexander Isak unless we get the news that Arne Slot is suggesting that he is going to be a starter. The problem for Ollie Watkins right now is that if I do play him for Everton away, after that, Aston Villa, of course, have got their fixture away against Sunderland, which is good. And then in game week 6, they have got their fixture at home against Fulham. And then in game week 7, I believe they have got Burnley at home. So you know just as well as I do, the moment I look to sell my Aston Villa, we are going to get them on a bit of a run with these fantastic fixtures, because fixtures breed form. But for this game week, I think I'm going to keep Ollie Watkins for the away game against Everton and give myself 2 free transfers for future game weeks and give myself some flexibility. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What are you doing ahead of game week 4? Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video looking at my game week 4 transfer plans. As I said, even though I don't love my team, I think rolling the transfer does make a lot of sense. But of course, we'll see what happens over the international break. So I do suggest trying not to make a move because so much can happen over that period. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you drop a like and of course that subscribe button if you want to stick around. Have an amazing day. Take care. Any questions, put them in the comment section and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.